everybody to the branch worship today. Thank you for being here. I have a couple of announcements that I want to make, and the one is that there's two long-time members passed away this week. One is Martha McDowell, and the other one is Betty McMullen. And Martha's funeral is going to be here on Tuesday, and then Betty's is going to be at a funeral home away from here up in Pennsylvania. But I did want you to be aware of that and know that. If you walked through the Welcome Center today, you saw a lot of boxes down there that are the boxes that we have been filling for Operation Christmas Child. Thank you. And they're all packed. We had a blessing on them this morning. There's a lot of volunteers here this week. There's people from the branch volunteering. And something about it really amazes me. I'm thinking that they collect like over 1 million boxes altogether around the world. Our group, the group that we're in, collects 60,000. But what I find interesting with that is they take these to a warehouse down probably in Boone, North Carolina, and they unpack every single little box and make sure that there's nothing inappropriate that was put in there. They have over 1,000 volunteers, and there's people in waiting lines to get to be a volunteer for that group. And we're now a drop-off site, and we had over 500 and some boxes. 130 or 50 of them came from this congregation. So we're not bragging on it, but we're just saying thank you. And that's the theme of my message today is thank you. Tomorrow night we have our charge conference. Our district superintendent will be here. It's once a year meeting that we have, and he presides over it, Derek Porter. This week there'll be no Bible study on Wednesday because of Thanksgiving, so we don't have that. But next Sunday, if you come to church next Sunday at 11 o'clock, what does that mean to you?
You're late.
You're an hour late. That's what it meant. It means we're walking out where you're walking in. So we want to be here next week at 10 o'clock. We're going to be doing a lot of good things. We're going to be dedicating the kitchen. I'm going to have it on film downstairs. We're going to be having some new members coming in. We have the Teen Challenge Choir is going to be here, so you're going to be blessed with that. It's going to be a very, very good day. It'll just last about an hour, but come out and be part of that, and that would be great. And in addition to that, we're also having a photo shoot. The young lady that does the filming, this is live right now on the internet, and she does the filming for that. And her and her husband are going to set up a photo studio down in the chapel. And you can have your pictures taken, and it's all professional quality. There's no charge for anything. And then what he does is you have your pictures taken, and he'll email them to you. And it's really nice. It's near the holidays, and it's all professional quality. So you might want to do that as well. Thanksgiving dinner is going to be here on Thursday from 12 to 4. And if you can't help, just come out and enjoy the meal. We'll have meals downstairs as well as upstairs. So if you bring somebody out and they can't come up down the steps, bring them anyhow, and we will have the food downstairs for that. We're going to have the ladies do a cookie bake on December the 2nd, and then a cookie wrap on December the 4th. And that information is in your bulletins that you had sent out today. And then Tuesday night of next week, there's an ecumenical Thanksgiving service at Holyoke, and Pastor Amy and I will be part of that. The Catholic Church is part of it. The different churches along the pike here take part of that service, and we're all invited out for that as well. And then lastly, we have what is called Sweets and Treats that one of our small groups are selling things downstairs, and they're really cool. You can give them as stocking stuffers, or if there's somebody that you work with that you want to give a little gift to and not have to spend a lot of money, but they'll like it because it's a lot of sweets. Like if you give me chocolate, you know, that's good. So you might want to give somebody something, and you can buy it and then help at a good cause. So we're going to have a prayer now, and we're going to go into take our offering. I did want to mention one thing. When the band just sang that song, One, you ever listen to the words of that song? That was written by a Baptist preacher's son. And growing up, he saw things in churches. This young man saw things that we were not all one. And then he wrote that song. And he was on, I believe, American Idol. Yeah. So the next time we sing that, pay attention to those words because it's very interesting. So let's pray. Father God, I thank you for all those that have come out on this day today. This is the warmest day of the week. And I thank you for it, Father. I pray, Lord, for this congregation of people, for the branch and for the band and for all that goes on here, and that you would be glorified, that you would be honored, and praise would be to you, O God. So bless this offering, multiply it for the kingdom, and may we be good stewards, O God, of the money that we receive here. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Today's lesson comes from the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 8. He has showed you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. This is God's word for God's people.
Thanks be to God.
Person that's been attending the church for the last several months now, and his wife has Alzheimer's and live over in Pennsylvania, and I go to see her about once a week. She hasn't spoken for about 3 years now, and she does recognize, they think, some people, but she's in dire straits. So on the way there, I drove by a United Methodist church, and the sign out front of the church caught my eye, because the first words were, be thankful. I thought, well, that's really nice. Be thankful. And I said, be thankful that you're not a turkey. So I'm thankful for that today. That I'm not, well, some people might say I'm a turkey, but that's from language from years ago. 2 years ago, I preached a message. I had what was called a thankful, being thankful, a thank you message. And it wasn't because it was Thanksgiving. It was just that something had happened that I saw, and I wanted to talk about it. I was driving 95 south. It was early in the morning. I was going to a meeting, and it was dark. But the sun was just starting to come up. It was a very cold morning. I remember that. There might have been some black ice on the road. And as I was driving along the highway, just before you get into Wilmington, I saw some commotion off the side of the road, and I slowed up. I was already driving slow because of the ice and things. But I slowed up a little bit more because I saw the commotion, and I saw a black pickup truck sitting along the side of the road, and then I saw a car. The car was along more down the embankment, and I'm not sure if it ran down that road or if it was upside down, but I knew that there was something going on there. And the pickup truck that was there was actually a fire policeman. That's who it was, a member of our congregation, Ron Schmidt. And I drove by him, and we signaled hello to each other. And then as I drove by, I was thinking about the members here in the congregation. I was thinking about Ron, and he was outside. It was very cold. He was outside, and I thought about the danger of him being there, and about people driving by and wanting to look, and other accidents could be happening from that. And you know what I'm talking about with that. And then my mind started to go as I'm sitting here in the church office, and I hear the sirens going by. I see the firefighters going by. I see people in danger wherever they're going. I see this and I think about that. And my mind started to think about all these different things. My mind is somewhere right now because I just looked at Debbie Litteral there, and Debbie was talking to me before worship today, and she was telling me about her brother Mike. And Mike is a young man, and he's in intensive care. He's in critical condition. They're not sure he's going to be coming home from the hospital. So his name is Mike. Think about Debbie. Think about Mike. Think about the family members that are sitting back there. And this is Debbie's brother, and I come from a family of seven children in my family, and we're all living. we never had a situation like Debbie is talking about. So her name is Debbie Literal. Lift her up, lift her brother up, lift Mike up in your prayers, and pray for the very best and for God's will through that whole situation. But my mind began to go to firefighters. And they're called firefighters for a reason. They fight fires. Then I thought about people that I pass on the road that are going to emergency situations that I recognize. I'm here long enough to recognize people, and I see people that are going on a call that's a dangerous call. And then I thought about people in service organizations like the Lions Club and the Rotary Club and different service organizations. And the Lions Club have their motto is, "We serve." And that should be the church's motto, but they got it first, and we can't take it. But that should be the church's motto. We serve. And we do serve. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here in our message today. But I think about people, and then I say, does anybody really thank Ron Schmidt for what he does? Does anybody really thank the firefighters for what they do? Are people thanking people in service organizations for what they do? Because there's a lot of people do a lot of things, and they could be dangerous things that people do. And do I hesitate? I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. Do I hesitate? Now, one of the things that I love, I'll tell you what I love. I don't travel a lot, but I love when I'm in an airport and they're loading the plane, and I always want to be first. And I'm never first. I'm always last, but they'll call the military. They'll say, the military, you come forward. And I always like that. Now, I'm with people that see somebody in a military uniform or a police uniform. They'll walk up to them and they'll say, thank you for what you do. And I think about that. I think about saying thank you to people that volunteer, helping here in this congregation. I think about police that put their lives in danger every single day. And this next part, the next few sentences, isn't going to be easy for me, but we're going to get through it. Laura back here on my right. Laura's a lawyer, and I did her wedding, and she's very familiar with the law, and she's familiar with these things. But she's married to a city policeman. And I was thinking about Laura. And I was thinking, when he leaves in the morning, does she really know what might happen that day? Because I was watching news last night, and I saw in Tallahassee, Florida, where there was a fire. So we had the fire departments. But before the fire department got there, a police officer got there. And he got on the scene, and he was shot and killed right away. And then the backup came out, and he was shot. He wasn't killed, but he was shot and wounded and had to be taken to the hospital. So all this is going, and then a neighbor was a policeman, and he put on his bulletproof vest and came out and shot the shooter. So all this is going on in response to a fire call. There's a fire in this neighborhood, and you never know what's going to be happening. I think about police when I'm driving along the highway and I see a police officer giving a ticket to someone or stopping and talking to someone. I think to myself, that police officer is alone, walking up to that car, and they have no idea what they're going to see when they open that door, open that window. They don't know. And do I thank them? Do I thank the police officers for what they're doing? Of course they're getting paid, but still I want to thank them for it, because it's a dangerous job and they're protecting us through all of that. My mind goes to all the volunteers that do so much in this congregation. So much. I have 2 funerals coming up this week. The one will be here. And that means that we have to have a lot of volunteers here. We'll have a luncheon, we'll have a meal. I call Joan here and tell her what's going on and how many people are coming out. And she sets everything up. I don't have to do anything. And she sets up the whole deal. We get greeters in, we get ushers to come in, we get the people to come in, and everything is taken care of. We have somebody that when you use the bathrooms here, somebody actually cleaned those bathrooms that week. And it was probably Greg that's sitting back in the sound booth right now. He's probably the one that cleaned them. And we have vacuuming. After after this service, we have food downstairs. This service is over around 12 o'clock. And I come back, and these 4 people right here clean up, put everything away, and sometimes they're here till after 1 o'clock. And we need to thank people that are doing so much. You say, well, preacher, I don't even know who does what they do here. But when you see somebody doing something, just say thank you. And then if they're not doing anything, they'll like that anyhow. They'll just say, well, you're welcome. Your children. Your little children, what's one of the first things you taught them? How to say please and how to say thank you. And if you didn't do it, you say, Johnny, what do you say? And you say, thank you. Or you say, please. It's being polite. It's being those things. I talked to a woman after our 9 o'clock service, and she said that in her report card from kindergarten. From kindergarten. She kept her report. I didn't know you got report cards in kindergarten. But she did, and she had on there and said that Darla never misses an opportunity to say thank you. And that's what we're talking about today. My passage that I chose for this service today, I went through my concordance, and I could have picked out many, many verses that had thank you in it, thanksgiving, thanks, things like that. I could have gone through and picked out, and I could stand here for the next hour or so talking to you about all the Bible verses that say thank you in it. But here's the way that I was directed by the Holy Spirit. In Micah 6:8 it says, He has shown you, O man, what is good. Now, the Bible is very masculine. If you read the Bible, you'll see a lot where it says he, him, oh man, things like that. But it really means He has shown you people. What is good? What does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. And we read here, don't skip over this word requires. It's a requirement. It's a duty for us to do this. To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. It's not a requirement for salvation. It's not a requirement of salvation. Jesus took care of that 2,000 years ago. But what it is, it's a requirement of those that call themselves Christians or followers of Jesus. You hear that right now? That person's going somewhere, and they don't know where they know where they're going. They don't know what they're going to see when they get there. But we have this requirement. A definition of require means to demand or impose obligation. To do as the law requires. And you say, well, preacher, what does the law require? What am I talking about? There's a lot of laws in the Bible. Well, in John 13, Jesus said that He has a new law. He has a new commandment. And that new commandment is to love one another. That's where we get Maundy Thursday service from, to love one another. That's the new commandment. That's what Jesus is talking about, and that's what the Lord is talking about in our lesson today. Micah was a prophet, and a fine prophet. And the Lord spoke through Micah to the people. First he said, to show you, O man, what is good. You see, because God is good. If we watch God, if we read about God, we're going to see that God is good. The Lord showed the people over and over again goodness. He reminded the people. If you read the Old Testament, you'll read there where He reminded people, I took you out of Egypt. I took you out of slavery. I gave you this land. I did this for you. They had to be reminded because the Hebrew people seemed to forget a lot of things that was going on. The Lord said, act justly. That means to act right. That's what that word just means, right. To do the right thing and say the right thing to other people. But the context of this passage today, where this verse came from, the people were talking to Micah, and they said, ask the Lord these questions for us. Ask the Lord, what would please you? Would it please you if we had burnt offerings? Would it please you if we offered 1,000 rams? Can you imagine offering 1,000 rams? Would that please you, God? Would it please you, Lord, if we had 10,000 rivers of oil? Would it please you, O Lord, if we gave you our firstborn child, our firstborn son? Would that please you, Lord? No. Micah said no. The Lord says no to these things. He says, here's what I want. We could ask the same question. Lord, would it please you if I wore a suit to church today? Would it please you, Lord, if I came to church every Sunday? Would it please you, Lord, if I came to this church building every time the doors are open? And Martha McDowell was here every time the church doors were open. Would it please you, Lord, if I gave you 10% of my income right off the top? Would it please you, Lord, if I volunteered more in the church? Would it please you, Lord, if I do those things? And what the Lord said back to Micah, and what the Lord is saying to us today, the Lord is saying, this is what really pleases me. Micah 6:8. That's what really pleases me. For you to act justly. Be obedient to the Lord in dealing with other people. Because that's how the Lord deals with us. And also the Lord says there to love mercy. We need to love mercy. But we need to understand what mercy is. If I was to hand out a piece of paper to each one of you today and ask you to put a definition of what is mercy, somewhere on most of your notes of paper, you're going to have on there the word grace and the mercy together. You're going to box those two words together. But what the word mercy really means is not getting what we really deserve. That's what it means. Not getting what we really deserve. The Bible tells us in Romans 6:23 that the wages of sin is death. So if that's the case, if the wages of sin is death, we're all dead. Because we've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. But then the verse goes on and says, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. So when sin occurs, when sin happens, it's not a physical death, but it's a spiritual death. But God shows us grace in our sin. God does show us grace in our sinning. Mercy means not getting what we deserve. Here's an example. I used to have a home in the Rehoboth Beach area. And it was a nice home. I wanted to retire there. John had his plans all worked out. But it didn't work out. John's plans didn't work out. And it was a Sunday morning. I took off church that Sunday morning. And I was driving. And I thought I was driving within the speed limit, but I wasn't. And I was pulled over by a police officer. So I was pulled over by the police officer, and he came up to the window, and he said, he took my license, and he said, so, Mr. Hornberger, where are you going in such a hurry today? And I hated to tell him. I said, well, I'm going to a NASCAR race today. And I didn't want to tell him I'm going to a NASCAR race because, I was speeding. You know what I mean? And it just wasn't working. The conversation wasn't working out right. So he said, okay. So I went back. He checked my license against my license plates and different things like that. And then he came around the car and he said, Mr. Hornberger, he said, I want you to enjoy your day. I want you to enjoy your time at the races today. So I'm going to let you off. Now what he did there was he showed me grace by letting me off. But when he didn't give me a ticket, he showed me mercy. See, because I really deserved that ticket because I broke the law. It could have been, in those days, on my bumper sticker, I had Methodist pastor written across it on a bumper sticker, and he could have let me off because I'm a Methodist pastor. I'm not really sure what it was about, but he did let me off. And when I drove away there, I began to thank God for mercy. Thank you for mercy. Thank you for mercy. Because I went to a restaurant right up the road, and I told them what happened, and they said they never heard of a person, of that police officer ever letting a person go for speeding. Never. So I felt honored because I was shown grace, but the deeper part of that, remember that word, the deeper part was I was shown mercy as well. The Bible tells us in our lesson today that we're to walk humbly with your Lord. We're told here to walk with the Lord. We're not supposed to run ahead of the Lord. We're not supposed to be slagging back from the Lord. We're supposed to be walking right alongside of the Lord. Communicating with God. Talking to God like you do your friends. Talking to God like you do your spouses. Walking along and talking to God. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And not only walk, but we're to walk humbly. Humbly with the Lord. Listen, you'll never go wrong with walking with the Lord. And you'll never go wrong with walking humbly with the Lord. The first responders, the firefighters, and the police, to those in service organizations and to volunteers, when I see them, I find that they're mostly humble people. That they really don't talk much about what they do. Some of them don't ever talk about what they do. But when I see people out of their jobs and speak to them in different places, they don't brag to me about being on a service project. They don't brag to me about being in a service organization. The one lady that passed away that I was talking about, the Lions Club built her a ramp for her husband in a wheelchair. He passed away a couple years ago. The Lions Club didn't brag to me about that. The people in the house did. Mrs. McCall, she did. She told me how they came out and took care of that. You see, people are proud to be in organizations. People are proud to be first responders. They're proud to do that, but they don't do it pridefully. You see, humility goes before pride. We as Christians are required to walk humbly with the Lord because we really know that God did it all for us. The Lord did it all for us. We didn't do anything for ourselves. It's all about God. And God showed us grace through Jesus Christ. Moses walked humbly with the Lord. Abraham walked humbly with the Lord. Ruth and Naomi walked humbly with the Lord. Martha McDowell walked humbly with the Lord. Benny McMullen walked humbly with the Lord. Our Bishop Johnson walks humbly with the Lord. Our District Superintendent Derek Porter walks humbly with the Lord. John Hobbs walks humbly with the Lord. Wayne Henderson walks humbly with the Lord. The people that are here in leadership walk humbly with the Lord. I know who you are. And you walk humbly with the Lord. I spoke to the chaplain, Steve, that helped me organize the service at 9 o'clock today. And I said to him, what does a chaplain do in the fire department? Exactly what do you do? I said, do you pray for the fire department? Do you pray for the firefighters? What do you do? And then he told me what he does. He does pray for them. He does hold services. He is the chaplain. But then he went deeper to something that I never thought about. He said, John, you remember when there was a fire down here in your area? I said, yeah, I do remember that. And the woman was there, and she was safe, but she had lost everything. And there was a huge rubble of pictures and things that was sentimental. And they were throwing all this on a pile, and it was wet, and it was dirty from the charcoal from the fire. Everything, all of her clothing, everything was being ruined, and she was standing there crying. Well, she needed to be consoled. Who's going to console her? The chaplain is. The chaplain's going to go over and say, man, I'm really sorry that this is happening. Let me pray with you. Let me pray through this with you. And this is what a chaplain would do. I think about this being the week of Thanksgiving, and I didn't choose this message to be on the week of Thanksgiving. I chose it because I'm inspired to talk about the thankfulness that I have in my heart for this congregation. This congregation of people that show me love, that show me mercy, that show me things. And I'm proud to be the pastor of this congregation, but not pridefully. It makes you very, very humble. There are pastors here, retired pastors, retired district superintendents, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's all very humbling in what we do. We're thankful for our salvation. We're thankful for grace and mercy and for our church. We're thankful for our health and for family and for friends. We're thankful for living in a land that's free, that we live in a land of democracy. We're thankful for our jobs and our careers and for our homes and places of shelter. We're thankful for our baptism and for our place in the church. We're thankful for talents and for the binds that God gives each one of us. We're thankful for these things. And you know I could go on here, don't you? Because we're very thankful. In the 1 Thessalonians chapter 5:8, we read this. We read that we give thanks in all circumstances. In all circumstances. Now that's really tough. That's really tough. It's hard to thank God in all circumstances if you're going through a divorce. It's hard to thank God in the circumstance of losing a loved one. It's hard to give thanks in all circumstances. But the Bible tells us that that's what we're supposed to do. And I have come to the conclusion that if the Bible tells us to do something, whatever it is, whatever all those circumstances are, that God is going to help us through it.
Amen.
If we go to God, that's the secret. We won't do it on our own. I say this at every funeral. I talk about people with how Isaiah compares us with eagles and what an eagle represents. An eagle is not afraid to fly into a storm. It's not. But you can't fly into a storm alone. You got to fly into a storm with God helping you. An eagle can look directly into the sun and not have its eyes damaged. We can't do that. Children, don't try it because it's going to hurt you. So what Isaiah is saying is that we can do the impossible with God's help. You can't do the impossible on your own. We can't. So we need to walk the way Micah told us to walk. Humbly. To love mercy. It's tough. But God wouldn't lead us into a place that He wouldn't help us out of.
Amen.
In our lesson today, we're told to act. We're told to love. And we're told to walk. I'm going to finish up. I'm going to tell you a little story. Some of you have heard this before, but I'm going to tell it again. And we do have I just sort of distracted there for a second because I'm going to talk about a real estate agent from Lancaster County. But we do have a real estate agent here in Gretchen today. But here's how the story goes. My sister Ruthie was raising her son. She's a single mom. She's raising her son, Curtis. And when 9/11 happened, Curtis was a bachelor, and he worked in an insurance firm in Lancaster City, and he joined the Army the next week. He's still in the Army. And anyhow, Ruthie had what would you call a semi-detached home, and she wanted a single dwelling home. So she made up her mind, and she got her finances together, and she decided to sell the semi-detached home and buy this single dwelling home, a little bit larger home. So she did. She did exactly that. And in Lancaster in those days, you had that published in the newspaper. So this real estate man called me, a friend of mine. He was a close friend of mine. And he said, John, you know, I sold your sister her original home, that semi-detached home. So I said, yes, I remember that, because I had told him, or told my sister to buy it through him. And he said, John, I saw in the newspaper where your sister sold the semi-detached home and bought another home, and she didn't call me for the transaction, and I wondered why. Because he said, I would have made commission on the first home just by listing it, thank you, and then I would have made commission on selling it on the home. He said, I'm really curious why she didn't call me to do the transaction. So I called her. I said, Ruthie, why didn't you call him to do those transactions? And she said, John, this is how it worked. She said, when I bought that semi-detached home from him, he never once said thank you. Never one time did ever say thank you. Thank you for your business. Thank you for buying this home. Let me give you my card, and I'll thank you if you sell this and want to buy another one. I'll thank you for it. So she said, I just figured that he had enough business, he had enough money that he didn't have to thank me for it. So you see, it's very important to say thank you. It's profitable to say thank you. And we need to say thank you. And we need to say thank you. Thank yous go a long way. We spoke about humility. Jesus said in the book of Matthew, he described himself only one time in the Bible. Other people described it, but he only described himself one time in the Bible. And this is what he said about himself. He said, I'm gentle and I'm humble. Those are the only two things. What he was talking about, what he said was, cast your care upon me. What he was saying was, cast your burdens upon me, is really what he was saying. Cast your burdens upon me. Because I'm gentle. Jesus is going to be gentle with you, no matter what. And Jesus is going to be gentle, kind, and humble. And you know, that's what we're supposed to be today when we walk out of this place. You see somebody that you need to say thank you to them. Or you need to be gentle to somebody, be gentle to that person. When you need to be kind to somebody, be kind to that person. And pray for your police officers. Pray for Laura and her husband. Pray for firefighters. Pray for people in service organizations. And say thank you. And I thank you for being a super awesome congregation. Amen. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the blessings of this day already. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. I thank you for this congregation of people, for the ones at 9 o'clock. And may we take a lesson from Micah. May we take lessons from the Bible. Take lessons from you, O Father, and from your Son, Jesus. I pray that you would send us on our way, being kind, being humble. For I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen, church. Now go, as always, and you hear me say time and time again, but it's important, knowing that you're loved, you are wanted, and you are needed in this place. We are in the hands and the feet of God here on earth. Amen, church? And just when you go out those doors, just do as the Bible says. Be humble, act justly, love mercy. Go in peace, church.
To fly